Hello and welcome back to Lauren's Legends. Alaska has always beckoned to me and it's at the top of my bucket list. It always brings mental images of beauty, nature, and adventure. But after my research, I may second guess venturing out too far into the vast beauty. You see, Alaska has its own mysterious triangle where people disappear without a trace. Rumors of an underground pyramid that charges UFOs, and I cannot forget to mention the Bigfoot that terrorized a village. Speaking of which, I am wearing my Bigfoot shirt for this one. So with all that, we are headed up north for this one, so you may want to grab a coat, a GPS beacon, and a hot drink because you're gonna need it. The Alaskan Triangle refers to an area of nearly 57 million acres of designated wilderness between Anchorage, Juneau, and a town whose name it is impossible for me to pronounce. I really tried. I looked up Google how to say it. It's not happening. But it used to be referred to as Barrow. In fact, this is the largest designated acreage nationally protected wilderness in the entire country. Far to the north lies a vast, brutal wilderness where mistakes are fatal and rescue is difficult and dangerous. Snowdrifts pile up so quick that evidence of misfortune can disappear just like that. Odd electromagnetic energies cause compasses to dance and spin, and the missing number is in the thousands. In fact, since 1988, 16,000 people have disappeared in this triangle. 16,000. That is outstanding. Planes, boats, snowmobiles, your own feet, doesn't matter. Head out into the wilderness of Alaska and you have a 1 in 4 chance of going missing. Oh, and did I mention the possible army of Bigfoots, river monsters, lake creatures, crossbreeding bears, hungry forest beasts, and all manner of cryptids roaming the whiteout? Just what in the world is going on up there in the frigid cold of Alaska? Here's a few ideas in the perfect storm that is the Alaska Triangle. So, as these things tend to happen, the area we now call the Alaskan Triangle didn't really hit the map, didn't really let the world know it was a place to make one shiver for many reasons until a popular figure went missing. That's right, kicking it all off was U.S. Majority Leader Hale Boggs and his private chartered flight in 1972. One of the largest manhunts in U.S. history ensued after the small plane was lost. 40 military planes would be aided by 50 civilian craft in the search. 125,000 miles was covered over 39 days of dangerous terrain and exhaustive trekking through the snow. No trace was ever found. Some have speculated on the fact that Boggs was on the Warren Commission, the group responsible for explaining JFK's assassination, and his dissenting opinions on just what happened were not sitting well with the powers that be. I don't need to tell you the implication there, but 2 things would result from the crash. 1, Congress would require all public planes to now have a black box on board, and 2, the Alaskan Triangle had announced itself to the world. Now that people had their eyes turned north, more and more stories would come to light, namely the doomed military flight of 1950. With a mix of civilian family and soldiers as well as crew members, the total number aboard the plane was 44, as they took off from Anchorage around 1 p.m. on January 26. Now, reports have it that the plane was scheduled to leave 8 hours earlier, but due to engine issues, it had been delayed. That's not an ominous start at all, now was it? After about an hour, the pilot would check in as he was supposed to be somewhere over the Yukon Territory. None on board were ever heard from or seen again. Since this was a military flight, one of the biggest searches in the history of the armed forces would ensue, but to no avail. Many of the searchers commented on how poor the weather was, making it exceedingly difficult to locate anyone in the storm. Let alone the fact that if the plane had gone down where they might have seen it, the relentless snow would have already covered it up. Couple that with the fact that the radar wasn't being used in the area at the time, and it feels like this rescue mission was doomed from the start. We could actually make this one all about the planes disappearing, as there have been so many. In fact, estimates of around 2,000 planes have crashed or have completely vanished in the last 20 years in this triangle. The sheer numbers on this one are simply staggering. I want to spend a minute on why this could be happening to the aircraft. Obviously, weather conditions are not always great in the snowy, cold, mountainous area. Storms come up fast, bringing unrelenting precipitation and deadly winds. But the area is a hotbed for electromagnetic activity as well. Compasses whirl like a top, and some have even reported that their readings have been a full 30 degrees off. It's enough to confuse even the best of pilots with loads of experience. Not unlike its Caribbean cousin, the Alaskan Triangle demands concentration and skill from pilots, and a little bit of luck never hurt anybody either. My question is, where does all the electromagnetic energy come from? Is it simply a natural phenomenon of the Earth? We know that it certainly plays a role in the amazing wonder that is the Aurora Borealis. And we've discussed on this channel before the grid of ley lines across the globe. Along these lines are found hotspots of energy, and our ancestors were able to build things that lined up with them. Many believe that the pyramids that are found all over the world are case in point of such. Perhaps that's why they found one twice the size of the Great Pyramid in Giza, under a mountain in the Alaskan Triangle. You heard me right. A pyramid under the snow. Why isn't this common knowledge? How come there aren't tours and thousands of amateur photographers crowding the banister trying to get a glimpse of history? That would be because the government is absolutely hiding the fact that this place even exists. Consider the story of retired counterintelligence officer Doug Muchler. He had recently been assigned to Fort Richardson in Alaska, of course, well within the bounds of our beloved triangle. A glance at the maps of the area to get the lay of the land would reveal a spot that said, "Not yet surveyed." Confusing, yes, but he thought nothing of it. That is until the Chinese decided to run an underground nuclear test in 1992. Why was this test underground? Because it was considerably larger than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima, and the world governments had agreed not to test ordnance that large. I think China may have missed that UN summit. Regardless, because the eruption was so gigantic, seismological instruments picked up readings all the way to Alaska. The way these instruments work is a survey of how the energy is moving through the earth. That means that they were scanning the affected area, and their readings picked up something anomalous smack dab in the middle of Muchler's unsurveyed area. Their readouts were very clearly telling them something their minds were not willing to accept. But there it was, plain as day, a gigantic stone pyramid roughly twice the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza. As unbelievable as this was, they had to tell the world. So a local news station would run a story on the 6 o'clock report about the scientists finding a dark pyramid in the middle of Alaska. Back at the base, Muchler would remember watching the story on TV with a room full of guys, which would lead to some real confusion because that story would never be broadcast again. Muchler wanted to catch it a second time at 11, but it never aired. Weird, right? Well, it doesn't end there. So, ignoring old adages about curious cats, Muchler went down to the station where he was promptly told by the producer that there was no such tape and no such story. Scratching his head, Muchler turned to leave when he was taken aside by some low-level coffee retriever and was told about two men in dark suits coming by to confiscate the very story that he was searching for. Real men in black types. Well, that's it. Muchler obviously let it go. Yeah, right. He would end up at the library at Fort Meade, Maryland sometime later. Wary of Will Smith and that flashy thing, he told the librarian he was looking for any archaeological sites in Alaska. Nice and vague, he thought. He was pointed in the right direction and he began his search for any clue to this mysterious triangle that may or may not be there. Not long after he starts his search, who would show up? Men in dark suits. They tell him he has no business researching what he's looking into. He proceeds to protest that it's simply archaeological surveys, but they persist, saying they know exactly what he is up to. Apparently, this threat carried significant weight because Muchler would let it lay low for many years until he retired from the service. His renewed interest would lead him to send an email to investigative journalist and founder of earthfiles.com, Linda Moulton Rowe. I will go ahead and mention the fact that not all are believers of all of Linda's stories and reports. She is, after all, in the business of sensationalism. Her tendencies to keep her sources close to the vest has not endeared her to her most fervent detractors, but she does claim to have been contacted by multiple people in her subsequent research of the Dark Pyramid. Firstly, she would report a call she received from an unnamed source describing the Dark Pyramid in detail. This person knew it was taller than Giza, knew that it was made of some dark stone, and knew its approximate location, divulging facts that matched up perfectly with the story of Doug Muchler. In addition to this are the reports of another unnamed source claiming to be a remote viewer. Remote viewing is something that the CIA cooked up a while back in order to spy on the Russians during the Cold War. They called it Project Stargate, and it is exactly what it sounds like. The viewer is in one place and is seeing reality in another place. Yes, I know. I'm skeptical of just how valid this research method is as well. But what is reported is even wilder than I imagine. The witness would report being inside of a base or facility of some sort. They were being given the dime tour. Around her were scientists and military personnel, and she remembered a long elevator ride down into the earth. After marveling at the experience for a moment, she eventually took in her tour guide. He seemed normal enough as far as his features go, except they were not distinctly human. That's right, it was an alien giving this tour. Not only that, but this alien was also giving orders as if it was in charge. Wait, aliens and humans working together. Are we secretly under the thumb of little green men? Well, these weren't little green men. They were akin to humans, but the differences were very clear to see in the eyes and in the stature. Not sure how I feel about remote viewing, but that wild tale was followed by another from Linda. She would be in touch with Bruce Pearson, former military man who was told quite a bizarre story by his father, Lee Pearson. A story that would make the idea of government cover-up not seem so far-fetched. Lee had a buddy in the Air Force who invited him along on a top-secret supply run one day in the depths of the Alaskan Triangle. Not one to pass up a good time, Lee gladly accepted and climbed aboard the helicopter. After enjoying the ride for a bit, Lee's friend would look over to him and tell him that all of the instruments were about to go nuts and that there were going to be loud noises and alarms coming from, well, all of the equipment. He told Lee to not worry about any of it. It would be over before too long. They were flying over the heart of the triangle where the electromagnetic forces hold sway. Eventually, the chaos did subside, and when they landed, Lee at first couldn't see that there was anything at all except for heavily armed men approaching the copter. Not guarding the chopper, but leveling the rifles at them. Men in nondescript black uniforms with no insignias of any kind. They quickly unloaded the cargo and began carrying it over to the smallest cement shelter Lee had only just noticed. He also claimed to have overheard two of the black uniforms discussing taking the cargo down to the installation. So, does this story detail Lee getting as close as civilians can possibly get to the top secret dark pyramid shrouded in mystery and government paranoia? I'm kind of convinced at this point that it is actually there, but what is it? What is its purpose? Who built it? And the most popular theory, yep, you guessed it, aliens. That would be why Uncle Sam is desperate to deny any existence of this place. The numbers of UFO sightings in the area are absolutely outstanding. 6,500 reported sightings of, well, somethings. That many incidents can simply be, wow, that is too many. The diverse nature of these reports is curious as well. From simple randoms saying they saw bright lights to one of the most famous UFO sightings in history. In 1986, an FAA report came to light detailing Japanese Flight 1628 and its unexpected visitors. The pilot would report seeing multiple craft shadowing the plane, not just following them either, but speeding up, slowing down, stopping on a dime, and turning at high velocity. One of these ships was gigantic, and the two others would approach the plane as if trying to figure out what it was, then return to the bigger ship. It was bizarre, but lasted for nearly the entire flight. Amazingly, we have this report because the plane wasn't shot down or attacked in any way. Furthermore, the story was backed up by the fact that both military and civilian radar reported seeing the craft on their screens. What in the world? Was it studying our planes? I feel like their ships were probably better than ours, so what exactly were those things doing? Of course, we could go on and on discussing the numerous encounters reported in the frozen wilderness, including the one where there was supposedly an entire squadron of weird lights filling the night sky said to be seen by multiple eyewitnesses. However, the further question is why? Why are so many aliens coming to see Alaska? The pyramid, of course. That's the theory anyways. The dark pyramid under the snow and ice is supposed to be a charging station for alien craft. No, you did hear me correct. Consider the rampant electromagnetic energy throughout the region, the myriad UFO sightings, and the obvious government cover-up. Throw in the story of alien and human collaboration in the underground facility, and my head begins to explode. If the aliens are ordering the humans around, it seems plausible that they've sent their own to manage such an important base as this. Apparently, all the foreign craft have to do is fly above the pyramid for a quick boost and they're on their way. Following this line of thought also explains that the pyramid is the cause of all the weird magnetism and electrical energies in that area. The power radiating out of the structure clearly messes with the instruments and disrupts the natural order of things up there. Is that it? So is the answer to the riddle of why so many people have gone missing over the years up there? Is it that the aliens are abducting them and doing their own research in their charging station? And is the government helping them? Let's just assume that that could be true. Still, 16,000 people in 36 years. The pyramid and UFOs cannot account for that many missing. So what of the others? The hikers, the adventurers, the day trippers, and camping enthusiasts who travel to the cold north and are never seen again. Cryptozoologist Ivan Sanderson is famed for his work on what he called the 12 vile vortices of the world. These places on the map are places not unlike our Alaskan Triangle, where the laws of physics do not necessarily explain the mysterious phenomena on display, namely the reports of swirling vortexes of energy through the Alaskan wilderness. These spinning cones of energy are said to have a major influence on those that wander into them. Of course, it depends on the direction of the spin. If it is going clockwise and one finds himself affected by it, they feel positive emotions, confidence, strength, etc. If the vortex is spinning counterclockwise, however, it's a whole other ball game. Many of those sent out to search for the missing have reported confusion, disorientation, and some have even been lost while trying to find the lost. I have actually seen trees growing in a strange way in the deserts of Sedona, which are said to have a good vortex, why a lot of people go to Sedona for healing and everything, which was really cool to find out in person. Anyways, back to the story. Now, our triangle is not directly mentioned by Mr. Sanderson as one of the vile vortices. Does that mean that this entire area is being affected by the energy of the pyramid? Are the aliens creating the vortices to ensure secrecy? Or does the charging station simply add to the mysterious powers floating along the ley lines? It remains unclear, but there are those who actively seek out these vortices, the positive ones at least, to experience their reported effects. That is definitely a contributing factor to the gigantic number of missing. I mean, on a basic level, some of these people have to realize what they are getting into. Many park rangers responsible for covering the areas note that many people come unprepared for the harsh wilderness and are simply taken by the elements. Think about it. Enormous ice falls and glaciers miles long, rivers of ice, shifting snowdrifts, crazy weather popping up out of nowhere. Seems pretty easy to lose oneself up there. If you fell into one of the many crevices, it's game over. No trace, just gone. Those things can open up without warning and are nearly impossible to see in a whiteout. Imagine walking along and your next footstep just goes right through the snow and doesn't stop going because you never saw the gaping hole until you were literally plummeting into the darkness. Also, consider the unrelenting snow. If you broke a leg or even sprained your ankle really bad and were unable to move, you could be buried in snow and never seen again. So was that what happened to inventor Richard Griffiths? A nature and camping enthusiast Griffiths created a bright orange survival pod, as he called it, essentially a portable igloo, and it would have stood out against a whiteout. His goal was to prove that his invention worked, so he trekked out into the unknown and was never seen again. Not even a glimpse of the unmistakable orange pod. His biggest mistake? He didn't bother to tell anyone exactly where or what part of the forest that he was venturing into. There was word of his passing into a village deep in the Triangle, but that's where the trail goes cold. No pun intended. But not all of the missing hikers and campers leave no trace behind. Nathan Campbell actually had a specific return date and told the rangers the general direction that he was headed. Nathan simply wanted to get away for a while, and that's exactly what he did. After his return date came and went, search and rescue went looking for him. They would find his campsite and even his diary detailing his adventures. His last entry said he was going to go look for water, and that was it. Campbell was said to actually be camping in an area near Mount Denali. You know, the area where a certain dark pyramid is supposedly located. Did he see something? Did they get him? Well, perhaps one of the most intriguing cases is that of Paul Lemaitre. Ever heard of a town called Seward? It's a little waterfront spot at the base of Mount Marathon south of Anchorage. Every year, they hold an annual Mount Marathon race. Sidebar, who in their right mind is running up 3,000 feet of elevation and back down again in less than a 5K? Is this a run or a mountain climbing excursion? The course record is 42 minutes. Good grief. Makes me tired just thinking about it. No, thank you. I will watch from the side and cheer people on. So, where were we? Oh, that's right. Lemaitre simply disappears in the middle of the race. By all accounts, the mountain itself contains sparse vegetation on the side where the race is held, meaning that the entire course can be seen from the ground below. Paul Lemaitre would make the summit and checkpoint there, even giving his race number to the volunteer on duty at the top. The race official radios down saying he should be crossing the finish line in about an hour. The hour came and went, and Paul was never seen again. Did he take a fall while everyone was looking the other way and slip into a cave? Or how did no one see anything? Just poof. It's just more fire to the flames of the Alaskan Triangle. That's right. If the aliens don't get you, the government doesn't disappear you for snooping around their pyramid, and the electromagnetic vortices don't addle your brain, you still have to watch out for random avalanches, surprise holes in the ice, and super difficult terrain in an environment that eats simple mistakes and unpreparedness for breakfast. And how could we forget? We aren't the only creatures that are roaming around in the frigid forest and in the mountain peaks. Oh yeah, you know what I'm talking about. We've got river monsters, vampire fish, beach whales, otter monsters the natives call kushtaka, and of course, the one and only Bigfoot. Or are there multiple surviving specimens? Bigfoots, big feet, bigfeetsies? I don't know. Tell me in the comments below what the plural of Bigfoot is. Well, not exactly on the land portion of the triangle. In 2015, from May to December, 46 whales washed up along the southern Alaskan coast into British Columbia. It was an odd morality spike, as the NOAA reported, and they were unable to find an exact cause. Of course, ecological reasons were cited, but it's still really strange. And if you want to talk about strange and mysterious, ever seen a lamprey? It's an eel-like fish that has too many teeth and no jaws. It eats by latching onto its prey, and well, that's why some call it the vampire fish. In the summer of 2015, residents of Fairbanks were shocked to see these fish literally falling out of the sky. When I first heard this, my mind went into overdrive. The weird powers of the triangle are throwing fish at Value Village shoppers now. What? However, upon a little bit more investigation, a very small number of these terrifying fish were actually said to have fallen from the sky, indicating gulls as the culprit. Not all birds are able to hold on to their slippery catch. Still, these fish living in the triangle are 500 million years old and are distinctly horrifying, not unlike reports of river monsters and unexplained creatures lurking in the waterways. As I'm sure that those of you that have stuck around this long in this video are aware, the Travel Channel has a 2-season series dedicated to the Alaskan Triangle, and in one of the episodes, there is actual video footage of what appears to be a water snake. I say it appears because firstly, it's gigantic, and secondly, it has ice attached to its back. In the video, all you can see is ice literally slithering over the surface of the water. The guy gets way too close for comfort, but is able to discern that this creature is unlike anything he has ever seen before. So not only is the triangle tossing fish through the air, but now it's growing lake monsters to rival Nessie. Just what exactly is in the water up there, or the air, or the snow? Is the electromagnetic energy from the pyramid actually influencing the wildlife, causing creatures to evolve past normal into the realm of what we call cryptids? The natives certainly seem to think so. You know, when I see an otter couple, it always warms my heart. They just look so cuddly and so cute. Apparently, those native to the Alaskan Triangle are anything but. Native lore speaks of a monster haunting the rivers and lakes, streams, and little creeks. That's right. According to the legend, the triangle is home to the Kushtaka, a shape-shifting otter monster preying on helpless victims. In fact, it's said that the Kushtaka will appear to wayward adventurers in distress, wearing the guise of a friend or loved one. The creature offers aid and claims to know the way out, only to lead the unsuspecting victims deeper into the wild before eating, or even worse, turning them into another creature. And here I thought otters were cute, cuddly, and cool. You learn something new every day. For more information on the Kushtaka, check out my Alaskan Urban Legends video that I did a while back. Of course, there are other legends from the indigenous population detailing a monster who stands quite a bit taller, bigger, I should say. That's right, the notorious Bigfoot has been spotted an enormous amount of times in the Alaskan Triangle. The area in and around the Lake Ilomnia is said to be a particular hotspot for sightings. The residents of one of the native villages on Lake Kokanock still hold that Bigfoot is out there, that multiple Bigfoots are out there. It's like commonly accepted wisdom. There have been so many sightings and incidents by the locals that it doesn't even faze them anymore. It's simply a part of life on the lake that they are clearly sharing with a gigantic hairy man-like beast. One particularly interesting sighting was made by a trio out on the lake fishing in the shallows, not far from the shore. They would look up, and there at the edge of the tree line was the biggest bipedal creature that any of them had ever laid eyes on. It had to be at least 10 feet tall, covered in hair, and, well, was staring at them. It didn't make any noise or sudden movements, simply glared across the water as if daring them to come ashore. After a few tense moments where the trio of regular-sized people couldn't believe their eyes, the thing simply turned and casually strolled off into the trees. All right, at this point, I'm hightailing it out of there. Not passing go, not collecting $200. What did our three adventurous souls do? They pulled the boat right over to their shore and decided to investigate the area where the gigantic killing machine was standing. Three brave souls, or stupid souls, they would find massive footprints in the muddy bank. Footprints clearly far too large for anyone they knew to make. This sighting may seem generic, but the fact that all three of them had the same story and the same mystified tones when discussing the incident gave it some credence in my book. They, of course, wouldn't be the only ones to find huge footprints in the sand. There exists another video of a local metal detector enthusiast who heard one day that the river was riding unusually low, revealing parts of the banks that are not normally accessible without a boat. Upon noticing a line of two large footprints in the sand, the person would start recording. The tracks were gigantic, yes, but even stranger is the fact that they were in a straight line. Follow along on a beach behind someone, and what's immediately noticeable is that there is a distinct line of left footprints and a distinct line of right footprints, two separate lines. The stride evidenced by these prints was also really, really long, indicating that it was either Shaq or Bigfoot. So many legends surrounding Bigfoot from the natives up there discuss human abduction, hence why we are discussing it in relation to the ridiculous number of missing persons in the triangle. The kicker for me, the one that pushes past my skepticism and actually frightens me a lot a bit, are the reports of upside down trees being forced feet deep into the mud. Apparently, it's common knowledge that if you come upon an area where trees have been ripped up from the ground and are replaced upside down, it means you're on Bigfoot territory. And something tells me that they're not going to be welcoming neighborly visits asking to borrow sugar. Just imagine the raw power it would take to rip a tree from the ground and then flip it upside down, smash it back into the ground so hard it stands tall in the dirt, roots up like some octopus with head in the sand, waving tentacles around in the air. Just thinking about what could do such a thing is absolutely terrifying. Just such a place was discovered on Prince of Wales Island, where the indigenous Tlingit people live. It's their lore that I've been citing throughout our entire Bigfoot discussion. If that wasn't enough, the native folklore leaves you yet mired in skepticism. Consider the fate of the doomed town of Port Chatham. The history of this little town goes all the way back to the early 1900s when it was set up as a fishing and a mining town. Of course, with the forest so plentiful, there would be logging that took place over the years there as well, making it a successful little community for quite some time. At some point, though, it seemed that Bigfoot had had enough of hunters, trappers, miners, and fishermen hunting their land. People started to disappear with no trace. They would walk out into the woods completing daily tasks associated with their various jobs, and they would never return. It got so bad that disappearances would become commonplace, an accepted risk of trying to make it in the frontier settlement. As time wore on, though, the disappearances became more sinister. some of the missing would turn up in gruesome and horrific condition. Clear signs of something enormous ripping people to shreds, leaving a gory mess behind. These stories go from no trace to evisceration and dismemberment. Now, to be clear, some people did have wounds resembling animal attacks, but others had their arms ripped clean off their torso. No claw marks or obvious slashes of any kind like you would find from a bear or a big cat. These reports became more and more commonplace, and people began to leave. There wasn't actually a lot of gold up there, in fact. The fishery was the most successful of the 3 operations taking place in the town. The motivation to stay in the harsh climate would plummet. Just think, life up there wasn't easy anyways. You had to battle to survive every day in the constant cold and harsh climate. So when people started showing up missing limbs from obvious mortifying violence, the townsfolk started leaving in droves. Finally, the day came where the camel's back had finally found its last straw. A particularly nasty scene was found where a person was completely torn to shreds, and nearby were the footprints of something massive, something walking upright on 2 legs, something that clearly wasn't very friendly, and that's when the nope descended upon most of the town. By 1950, there was only one person still living there, the postmaster. He would go on to record saying he stayed because he thought the town might come back, might revive itself at one point. But after he was the last man standing, he persisted there another whole year, but no one returned, and he would leave himself, completing the total abandonment of the town. So for those of hardy sinew and adventurous spirit, the town of Port Chatham is still out there today. You can go visit it yourself. However, it is incredibly remote and extremely difficult to get there, meaning that you are trekking in at your own risk. No one is coming out there to save you if something goes wrong. So, was it a Bigfoot that chased everyone off? That seems to be the standard theory, but there does exist one other possibility. The area is actually teeming with Kodiak bears and the occasional polar bear. If we think about how large polar bears can get and imagine that they have crossed paths with the Kodiaks, it makes perfect sense that there might be some crossbreeding happening. Could a massive cross between a Kodiak and a polar bear be responsible for the horrors lurking around Port Chatham? Bears stand on their back 2 legs all of the time, of course. Were the huge footprints those of a hungry bear, unique in its lineage, simply having a field day with the plentiful game the people of the town represented? My only caveat to that theory is the accounts of the townspeople. Think about it. They've lived up there for years on end. One would think that they could tell the difference between a bear track and, well, something else. See, it's once again the sheer volume of reports. Eventually, someone's not lying. That's too many people, too many reports, too many sightings, and too many encounters that leave me shaking my head. I always try to employ a healthy skepticism when researching such things, but at some point, the massive weight of all of these reports have to provide some sort of authenticity. I'm convinced, just as the people of Port Chatham, that something huge, something unidentified, and something utterly terrifying is haunting that area. So once again, we find ourselves baffled by the sheer number of missing persons, weird encounters, UFO sightings, and hushed tales of government cover-ups. For me, there is not one simple explanation. I believe it's simply the perfect storm of phenomena and the mostly uninhabited area fueling the blaze of our imagination. I think the elements contribute to the numbers. I think that there are secrets up there that don't need to be found that contribute to the missing. And of course, the tales of cryptids and wild beasts aren't gonna add up to safety in the area either. But what do you think? Please let me know in the comment section down below. Does Bigfoot rule the Alaskan wilderness? Are aliens charging up their spaceships from a pyramid placed on ley lines, causing crazy electromagnetic events? Or can the wildlife and the elements explain away the craziness? I want to see your comments and I'm excited to read them on this one. Thank you so much for watching, and if you are still here to the end, please put a snowflake emoji in the comment section down below so I know who my real MVPs are. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.